welcome back. So in this section, we will be talking about your approach towards Quran. So what should be our approach in order to understand Quran, and what should be our attitude? What are the main points that we should remember when we are engaging in the study of Quran? The first thing that we need to know is that to have a great deal of respect for the holy books, because we are approaching with the sense of reverence, respect, and humility, which is important because we don't know everything and we may not understand everything. Quran is a book that when you start reading and reciting, it can kind of like put challenges and have you question your preconceived ideas, because we all come from a place where we already have like cultural baggages or personal baggages, or we have like, a mindset which is not clearly a mindset that is formed according to Quran. So we are coming from preconceived ideas basically, and we need to suspend that when we are reading the your book and engaging in the holy book, because a lot of things we may not understand and we may question that, and it will challenge us. So keep that in mind. The second thing we need to know is to have like sincerity and openness, sincerity towards Allah, sincerity towards understanding, and having a right intention. So making an intention that if I don't understand things right now, maybe Allah will open up a door for me and I'll be able to understand it later, and willing to reflect deeply on the applications and on the teachings. The second, the third point that you have to remember is the contextual awareness. So taking the verses out of the context is something which is very dangerous. You have to keep in mind the historical context and the cultural context in which the verses have been revealed. So we cannot really analyze Quran according to a modern day society and according to modernity, because a lot of things have changed over the time. So we need to understand that the message of Quran, the essence of Quran, is same throughout the centuries and the time period, because the human nature has not changed. We may have advanced in technology, but deep down inside, the human nature is same, and God is referring to that nature of human and what they have, the struggles they have, the ego, the superego, the kindness, the meanness. So all those things which are found within the human beings. So Quran is shedding light on that deep nature of human beings. So we need to keep that in mind as well, that we cannot take the verses out of the context, whether it's a cultural context or historical context, and we have to understand that this guidance is given to humanity, basically to preserve the nature that God has created within us. And then the fourth point is seeking knowledge. So when we are seeking knowledge, where are we getting our knowledge from? From who are the scholars, teachers, where they have got their understanding from? And also like there's a supplication by Prophet Muhammad. He said, "Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafiyan, rizqan tayyiban wa amlan mutaqabbilan." So we try to get knowledge which is an nafiyan, knowledge that's beneficial for us, because in today's society and in modern day, we have so much information overload that sometimes we are unable to actually see what is authentic and what is not. So there may be too much information, but not necessarily the knowledge that's beneficial for you and beneficial for your nature, for your soul to grow and to be able to evolve over time. There could be many disciplines and knowledge and information that can be actually damaging in some ways. So it's important to be able to make that distinction. When Quran refers to it about seeking knowledge, is usually the sacred knowledge, the knowledge that advance human soul, the knowledge that helps you in the development process in spiritual evolution. Then consistency and patience is another point that we need to look at. So having a consistent study and reflection, and having a time where you can go back and maybe study few verses at a time, if not a complete surah, because there are some longer chapters in Quran and some are the shorter ones. So if you are a beginner, then you start from the shorter chapters. If you're into it and you have already completed the last part of the Quran Juz Amma, and which are the smaller chapters, then you can go on the bigger one and then try to go by passages, which I have like described earlier, that there's a division of passage when we are doing the longer surah. Reflection and contemplation. So beside reading and understanding and listening to the scholars, teachers, and if you're gaining a knowledge that way, it's also important to have a time to reflect on the verses of Quran and let that speak to you. Because many times when you go through the verses, when you're reading them, it kind of affects your heart, and it kind of like almost like is speaking to your soul. So that enhance your spiritual growth. They also like, give you time to reflect and contemplate, which is very important. The seventh point is prayer for guidance. So just like I mentioned earlier, you said, Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafiyan, rizqan tayyiban wa amlan mutaqabbilan, that Allah guide me towards the knowledge that's beneficial for me. Then learning Arabic. Of course, Arabic is a difficult language. Not everybody can learn right away, especially people who are coming into Islam anew. They will take a long time to learn the language. But beside that, there's a translation available, there are commentaries available, and be able to learn a language when you can to comprehend Quran is always a best idea. And then the ninth point is that you have to take in consideration avoiding preconceived notions, which I mentioned earlier, that we are all coming from a country, from a background, from cultural background, and maybe even family background, that sometimes knowledge is not authentic, but is passed on from generation after generation. Oh, I heard my grandparents talking about it, or I heard my father saying that, or my mom saying that. You have to check the authenticity and the source about if they're mentioning something, where is it coming from? So avoiding any kind of preconceived idea is the best approach towards Quran, because we don't want to bring those personal biases and those preconceived ideas that we have and then form our beliefs. So that's important to analyze. And if you're working with a spiritual coach, like when I do work with people one-on-one, we do go through the process of analyzing if there's this concept is coming from, where does it coming from? Is it something that you have formed, or is it a belief system that you have kind of like accepted from your ancestors or country that you're coming from, the region of your country, or maybe culture practices? So be able to distinguish between culture and religious practices. Holistic understanding of Quran, that's another point that's important. So interpreting verses in the context, which is, of the whole Quran rather than taking one verse in isolation. That's another thing that you have to know, and I have emphasized that a lot, that there's interconnectedness between the verses. But other than that, if you look at the chapters of Quran, even like Surah Qasas, which talks about the story of Prophet Musa, and then Surah Baqarah talks about the story of Prophet Musa. But in both cases, when you look at the surah, the emphasis would be different in the story. And so when you put all these different stories or pieces of stories that are mentioned throughout Quran about Hazrat Musa, when you put them together, you'll be able to see a very complete picture. So what I'm trying to say here is that you will find verses in Quran in one chapter, and then you will find other verses related to the topic in another chapter. It's almost like pieces of puzzle. When you put the pieces of puzzles together, you will see a large picture. And so having a holistic understanding is important, to take that approach that, this is one piece of information I have discovered here in this surah, and I need to look at the similar pieces of information found throughout the Quran in other verses. Ethical and moral readiness. So be prepared to apply the ethical and moral teaching of Quran into your life. So what's the use of acquiring all the knowledge if you're not able to apply it? As Imam Al-Ghazali said, that knowledge without application is useless. So you have to take the knowledge, and then you have to be able to apply it and revive the sunnah. So if you are able to take the teachings of the Prophet and then you kind of apply it and bring it to life, then you are giving life to the sunnah of the Prophet, maybe even a forgotten sunnah. So that's important. And then if you're reading the verses of Quran, you come across something which is like applicable, something that you can apply. For example, it talks about giving charity. So let's say you're a person who have not done so regularly before, but when it talks about giving charity, make a habit of giving charity regularly, maybe once a month, maybe, twice a month, whatever is easy, convenient based on your financial background and your finances. So those things are kind of like actionable items that you find in Quran, the verses that kind of call you to action, basically. Then you'll be able to apply that. Community and scholarship. That's another point we have to consider, engaging with the community of learners and scholars. It's better to have like a study circle, be able to, discuss the verses of Quran, be able to understand it, have a diverse perspective if there are different scholars available in your community. And if not, then there are also study circles, and which I have led for many years, the study of Quran circles that we used to like engage in reflection, in talking about the verses, discussing the verses, so that helps you grow spiritually. And of course you take all this with the research and with the understanding of the ancient scholars and the present day scholars. So I hope that that helps and keep the approach right towards Quran when you are going deeper into the study. See you in the next clip.